This 12-year-old girl is about to end the lives of her entire family. Her dad, her mom, and her 8-year-old brother. Meet the Richardsons. Mark, he was 42, and Mark worked in the oil industry, typical hardworking dad. And then there's Deborah. She was 48, a kind and loving woman who worked with a non-profit organization. And then there's Jacob, an energetic, happy-go-lucky 8-year-old who loved cartoons and loved playing outside. Jasmine, their 12-year-old daughter, was your average preteen, at least on the surface. She was doing pretty well in school and had friends and was starting to explore different styles and interests. But like many kids at that age, she was changing, getting into gothic fashion, heavy metal music, and most importantly, social media. They lived in Alberta, and Jasmine became friends with this guy, Jeremy. He was 23, and Jeremy was deep into gothic and vampire culture. He told people he was a 300-year-old werewolf. Yes, seriously. He even wore a vial of blood around his neck and growled at people. Jeremy was born and also lived in Alberta and had a troubled childhood marked by physical abuse from his father and stepfathers. He recalls horrific experiences, including being locked in a deep freezer by his second stepfather and fighting off an abusive ex-boyfriend with a lead pipe. And by 14, he started drinking and using. He dropped out of school, struggled with finding stability, and eventually dropped out of college and work prospects. And while most people saw him as weird, Jasmine, she was completely drawn to him. The two talked regularly on a site called Nexopia, and Nexopia is a social media platform which was pretty popular with Canadian teens at the time. And very quickly, the online chats turned romantic. They started calling each other soulmates, despite the fact that Jasmine was literally a child and Jeremy was a grown man. But there was one problem, a major problem. Jasmine's parents, obviously Mark and Deborah, were not okay with their 12-year-old daughter dating a man in his 20s. And when they found out, they banned her from seeing him and took away her internet access. This should have been the end of it, right? No, wrong. And instead of listening, Jasmine and Jeremy became even more determined to be together. And the more her parents pushed back, the more she pulled away. And the messages became dark. And at one point, Jasmine wrote, "I have this plan. It starts with me unaliving them and ends with me living with you." And Jeremy replied, "Well, I love your plan, but we need to be smart about it." Obviously, he was all in. And they didn't just talk about it, they planned it. And on April 23, 2006, they made it happen. It was late at night when Jeremy, armed with a knife, crept into Mark's home. Jeremy was allegedly drunk and high on a number of different substances. Mark was the first to wake up, and he apparently came downstairs, saw this Mark's figure in the dark, which obviously was Jeremy. Jeremy attacked him over and over until Mark collapsed. And Mark was allegedly 24 times. And Mark's last words were reportedly to ask Jeremy why he was doing this. Jeremy replied, "Because it's what your daughter wanted." And Deborah heard the commotion and also rushed downstairs, saw her husband bleeding, and screamed and tried to fight off Jeremy, but Jeremy was relentless, obviously stronger than her. He fought hard, even managed to once, but he eventually overpowered her about 12 times. Meanwhile, upstairs, Jasmine was with her little brother Jacob, and the 8-year-old boy was awake and terrified, and he looked up to his big sister, the person he trusted the most, and asked her why. And to this day, it's unclear whether it was Jasmine or Jeremy that ended Jacob's life. But what we do know that is that he was also multiple times. Investigators even found evidence that he had fought valiantly against his attacker, and it was alleged that he had utilized his toy lightsaber to defend himself in the attack. Seriously, I feel sick telling this story. But after everything unfolded, Jeremy took off in his truck, leaving Jasmine behind in the house, and she cleaned the knife used in the attack, packed a bag with clothes and toiletries, and took her mother's purse. And using her mother's card, she withdrew cash from an ATM at a 7-Eleven nearby to arrange a ride to Jeremy's place. And once she arrived, they spent the night together. And then the next morning, instead of laying low, the two decided to go to a friend's house party. And at the party, Jasmine was seen laughing, talking, and acting completely normal. She sat on Jeremy's lap, showing no sign of remorse, no signs of distress. They openly displayed affection for each other. Jeremy was even showing off the injury he had gotten during the struggle with Mark. And at some point, Jeremy made a shocking statement about what had happened. And Jasmine backed him up. And some of the people there thought he was just trying to act tough until the news broke. And after the party, they left town with a few others and headed to a town called Leader in Saskatchewan. Meanwhile, the next morning at the Richardson's home, an innocent little boy went to the house hoping to see if he could play with the 8-year-old Jacob, but instead he peeped through the window and found their lifeless bodies. The police arrived quickly and discovered the entire family was gone, unalived. But one thing was strange though. Jasmine was missing. And at first they thought she had been, kidnapped or taken away. But when police searched her computer, they confirmed that she was a suspect. The search for Jasmine and Jeremy didn't take long. And eventually they were found the next day in Leader, Saskatchewan, apparently kissing at a dinner. They were arrested on the spot, and because she was under 14, Jasmine was tried as a minor and got the maximum sentence of 10 years. Jeremy, on the other hand, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole only after 25 years. And Jasmine was released and walked free in 2016 at just 22 years old. Jasmine is now a free woman. She's legally changed her name and has tried to move on. She changed her identity, went to university, and was released back into the society like nothing ever happened. Jeremy remains behind bars to this day. He has been denied parole multiple times, and he insists he was influenced by love. But the biggest question remains, was Jasmine a manipulated child or a cold-blooded? Share your thoughts. If you want to watch more of my videos, like, subscribe, comment, share, and put on the notification bell. And I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.